Catholic pilgrims, as we learn from one of Spain's most revered saints, Saint Teresa of Avila, a spirited doctor of the Church. Join me, Amy Thomas, once a week as we read from Saint Teresa's book, The Interior Castle. Hey Catholic pilgrims, welcome back for another milestone day. Today we will be finishing the third mansion by reading just the last two numbers. And as I explained last time, today is going to be shorter, at least a shorter reading, because I didn't want to read too much in one sitting last time. So today, St. Teresa is going to be talking to us about obedience and misguided zeal for others. Now, obedience in our day and age has become a dirty word. Obedience is seen as something that those who are oppressed or, forced to do. It's for the dependent, you see. And in our age, where everyone values independence above most things, it's actually seen as a virtue, really. It is hard to even start talking about why we should be obedient to certain people. The fact is, we are all obedient to someone or something. In a way, we must be, or chaos ensues. But most people don't like to hear that. Yet, in this quest for extreme independence, people become obedient to their passions and their desires. And very often, what that leads to is falling into sin and vice and getting very deep into it. With regards to misguided zeal, well, we see that all around us today as well. Mostly it's misguided zeal in encouraging people in sin, specifically sexual sin. But what about misguided zeal in the spiritual life? What does that look like? Well, to hear my thoughts, you'll have to meet me on the other side of our readings. Today's readings are from the Third Mansion, Chapter 2, Numbers 18 and 19. Our sponsor, Chrism Press, has an intriguing book to tell us about first before we begin. Are you ready for a spine-tingling read that explores the intersection of faith and the supernatural? Look no further than Chrism Press's The City Mother by Maya Sina. This debut novel follows a small-town reporter who confronts the reality of evil after moving to a new city with her family. As she grapples with her own mental health and the mysteries surrounding her, she navigates the complex web of reality and illusion, good and evil. Get ready to be spellbound by this thrilling new addition to the world of Catholic fiction. Go to chrismpress.com/shop to purchase your copy. I'll put the link in the show notes. And also be sure to use the coupon code PILGRIM15 to get 15% off your first order. And now, on with the show. Souls who by God's mercy are brought so far, which as I said is no small mercy, for they are likely to ascend still higher, will be greatly benefited by practicing prompt obedience. Even if they are not in a religious state, it would be well if they, like certain other people, were to take a director, so as never to follow their own will, which is the cause of most of our ills. They should not choose one of their own turn of mind, as the saying goes, who is over-prudent in his actions, but should select one thoroughly detached from worldly things. It is very helpful to consult a person who has learned and can teach this. It is encouraging to see that trials which seem to us impossible to submit to are possible to others, and that they bear them sweetly. Their flight makes us try to soar, like nestlings taught by the elder birds who, though they cannot fly far at first, little by little imitate their parents. I know the great benefit of this. However determined such persons may be not to offend our Lord, they must not expose themselves to temptation. They are still near the first mansions to which they might easily return. Their strength is not yet established on a solid foundation like that of souls exercised in sufferings, who know how little cause there is to fear the tempest of the world, and care nothing for its pleasures. Beginners might succumb before any severe trial. Some great persecution, such as the devil knows how to raise to injure us, might make beginners turn back. While zealously trying to withdraw others from sin, they might succumb to the attacks made upon them. Let us look at our own faults and not at other persons. People who are extremely correct themselves are often shocked at everything they see. However, we might often learn a great deal that is essential from the very persons whom we censure. Our exterior comportment and manners may be better, this is well enough, but not of the first importance. We ought not to insist on everyone following in our footsteps, nor to take upon ourselves to give instructions in spirituality when perhaps we do not even know what it is. Zeal for the good of souls, though given us by God, may often lead us astray, sisters. It is best to keep our rule, which bids us ever to live in silence and in hope. Our Lord will care for the souls belonging to him, and if we beg his majesty to do so, by his grace we shall be able to aid them greatly. May he be forever blessed. In number 18, St. Teresa is talking about obedience, very specifically prompt obedience. And as I said in the beginning, obedience is a dirty word for the culture at large. But we all know that, and so I want to focus on the spiritual obedience we owe to God. And just as a side note, when she says, find yourself a director, what she's talking about there is a spiritual director. And what she also goes on to say is, don't find a spiritual director who thinks just like you. And don't find one that's too prudent in his actions. So that's what she's referring to there. But as I was preparing what to say here, I thought about all the people in the Bible who were obedient to God. Now, that's a lot of people to go over, so I'll just name a few, but we have Noah, Moses, Abraham, Job, the prophets Daniel, Jeremiah, Isaiah, and the others, King David, a lot of the times, Mary, the apostles, especially after the ascension. And as I was thinking about them, I realized that each one of them was asked to be obedient, either when life was going fine or when life was very hard. Now, let me give you some examples. King David was a young man when God called him. He was just a shepherd. And we don't know anything about his life before he was called to be king. But I have a feeling he was just leading the life that was set before him by his father. And he didn't really think too much about it. He was a shepherd, and that was his lot in life. Things were probably just fine as far as life goes. Same with the apostles. Peter, Andrew, James, and John, they were fishermen. And they were probably content to be that until the end of their days. But then, God calls them out of their path and asks them to do something big. Something almost impossible, it might seem. And they weren't seeking to do anything different necessarily, but they were obedient, and God really changes the course of their lives. Now, on the flip side of that, you have God asking people to be obedient when life is hard and there's some kind of turmoil. Think here of Noah, Moses, Job, the prophets, King, and specifically on Jeremiah. That guy had a rough time. And even Mary, because Mary was asked to be a virgin mother. And who was going to believe that? Would Joseph understand? Well, we know that he was seeking to silently divorce her. So that was really, really hard. And in these people's lives, God asked them to do something that seems nearly impossible. I mean, Abraham, he was probably living a very comfortable life, or just at least a life that he was content in. But God asked him to leave probably the only home he had ever known at a very old age. And that's just not easy. As someone who moves around a lot, I know that's not easy. But with all of these people, they answered the call of obedience. St. Teresa has told us several times not to be, quote, over prudent in our actions. And we talked about this before and what she means by that. This over prudence, where we weigh everything out too much and it paralyzes us and it keeps us from being obedient and, being called into action. And you and I know how this looks. We say things like, when my kids are older, then I'll do this. Or when I get to retirement, then I'll have lots of time to give to the church. Or one of my favorites, I have to take care of my four walls first before I can do anything else. And the reality is there will always be something. There just will. When God gave me the inspiration to start this podcast, the first season, by reading St. Faustina's diary in 1 year, I was overly prudent for just a bit, which is rare for me because I can be the overly prudent type nearly all the time. I will overthink things to death. But in that moment, I thought about how hard it was going to be to do a daily podcast for 1 year and read a pretty deep book while stationed overseas. Humanly speaking, it seemed like too much. But in that moment, I said yes. I was obedient. And all I said was, well, God, if this is what you want me to do, you will have to carry it through. And he did. There were 0 hangups, no delays. I never missed a day. Nothing bad happened. It all went off without a hitch. And I look back now and I see that God really did carry it through. And that's the thing. If God asks you to be obedient, he will help you. He's not going to ask you and then just leave you to yourself and watch you fall on your face and laugh at you. He wants you to succeed, and so he will supply the graces and the helps needed. Now, in number 19, St. Teresa talks about misguided zeal for other souls. And thinking this through, I came up with 2 very incorrect responses with regards to other people's souls. And the first one is indifference. Now, St. Teresa doesn't talk about indifference here. Maybe she will later, I don't know, but this was just something I was thinking about. It would be wrong to be indifferent about other people's souls and just not care where they end up. This is what I don't like about the belief and the practice that Christianity should just be a quote-unquote personal relationship with you and Jesus. That's not biblical, as it doesn't seek to evangelize or help people in their sin, or help people out of their sin, I should say. We should care if we see people sinning. Now, the second wrong attitude is what St. Teresa talks about, misguided zeal. She says, quote, zeal of the good of souls, though given us by God, may often lead us astray, unquote. Now, she talks about how this is kind of a danger in the first 3 mansions, specifically here in the 3rd mansion, because you kind of made your way into the castle. Feel like you're doing really good. You're kind of proud of yourself, patting yourself on the back, think you've got it all figured out. And then you start to look around to other people. You're like, oh, I need to fix these other people. I need to get everybody to follow exactly how I live my life. And so that's where this misguided zeal comes from. Now, when I was a student at Kansas State University, the Westboro Baptist members would show up sometimes on campus. And there was always this one guy with his bullhorn just shouting about hell and damnation, and everyone in front of him, not him, everyone was a sinner going to hell. And I would kind of sit in the back and watch, and it was so embarrassing and mortifying to see him there, because he was such a bad witness to Christianity, and he was convincing no one at all. And in his zeal, I do think he had zeal. It was definitely misguided. But in his zeal to supposedly save people from their wicked ways, he became this burdensome, tyrannical loudmouth that was off-putting to everyone, even Christians. Now, I don't agree with the milquetoast, watered-down version of Christianity that we have today, but this guy's way, the Westboro Baptist guy's way, isn't the right path either. He didn't really follow what St. Teresa, encourages when she says, quote, "Let us look at our own faults and not at other persons." The Westboro Baptist guy couldn't see that his entire message was completely devoid of love. He was not loving in the slightest. Like, you didn't feel he really cared about you and really cared about helping you come out of your sin and really find Christ. You just felt more like he hated you, and he wanted to tell you that he hated you and that you were beneath him because he was perfect and he was saved. This is not helpful. This is not helpful. This is definitely misguided zeal. And I'm not saying, most people are like this. This group is, pretty rare. I did see them in Vegas, people that were doing something similar, standing on the street corners, yelling in bullhorns. But it is misguided zeal. And it's something that we need to be aware of. I don't think all of us out here listening are like the Westboro Baptist people, but we do just need to focus on what our faults are. And then if we are going to admonish somebody, to do it in a very loving way. So there has to be that balance. Yes, we should lovingly admonish the sinner because we love them, because we are worried about their soul. But we also need to be accepting of admonishment ourselves. And most importantly, we need to be checking our own faults, as she says. And then also, we have to trust and pray that God will find a way to reach people who are sunk in sin, who maybe we have a lot of zeal for and we're trying to help. It may not be our help that, wakes them up and gets them to realize, the error of their ways. But God will find a way. If not us, he'll find another path. As St. Teresa says, quote, "Our Lord will care for the souls belonging to him. And if we beg his majesty to do so, by his grace, we shall be able to aid them greatly." So that will be all for today. Next time, we will be entering the fourth mansion. And until then, live the faith boldly and travel well.